is Halo of the Huntress. Is this the storied Crystal of Thoth? This shows the Crystal of Thoth on the pinnacle of the obelisk.
Oh!
Ah, the mirror reflects the light from the crystal. Ah, the mirror reflects the light from the crystal. There, beneath the Tree of Life, a path has been revealed. I have never seen such swords, made of the strongest iron, and have not rusted in all the ages spent under this tree. This must be the treasure Deimos is searching for.
Timhawk und Bucket!
Era vigilant.
Et dabo vos in consumationem! Prohibe! Yes, shit. Shit. Capish Hawk! Quizes! Inferno!
in corpore ed ilos!
נתחיית.
Harwan knows how to pick his workers.
Ah, so this is the secret quarry the rebels spoke of.
I heard Aretas killed himself instead of coming here. Please, we thought it was coming. I prefer death to slavery. Haha, you must be the killer shadow Haganu sings of.
This is no place for a child.
Yes, Neb. You see the hungry eyes on the children here? All bought of a slave merchant on the way of Horus, where he rides his shiny mount.
I will kill this sick soul, and you will see the sun again.
Thank you, Killer Shadow. You are living up to your good name. He will free us, thank Amun.
Hugo bun stultos non patitur. Si nosti.
Whoa.
No, Dio.
Continua, guerri non più! Voi non proibere!
That mount could come in handy.
Yes! Fill him with arrows!
Damn
Fight
you!
the gods!
Ruining
Is
my
it
work!
true? We will
Take
take
this!
freedom
Die!
again! Uncle Ron, send the
Quis audivit contra me! Correct!
Latini disciplinam vi!
I am free! Long live the Killer Shadow!
Go now.
Poenam!
Whoa. I must be careful now.
State! Et io silus! Nolente ibi!
What the werewolf?
I should not be seen in this area.
Senefer Chesed!
Nollite ibi, sed sanguinum a sepulcrum!
Et percutiamo seum!
mountains. Apollo means me to find this halo of the Huntress.
Weg.
Lake of Tears. And what was the next part? The sun god drove his fist into the mountain. This place is heavily guarded. sacred gift. The girl.
Kerktoestanden!
She's dead! The two!
Het non-moment!
Conquiesto!
Non refuit! Carerbitis optimam partem!
Thank you!
How is our brave widow?
What do you need, traveler? Yes, all right. Could use that. Deal. Could use that. Deal. Yes, all right. Deal. Could use that. Yes, all right. Deal. Could use that. Yes, all right. Deal. Could use that. Yes, all right. Deal.
Εγώ, καλός στρατό. Φάβοι πάντες σε συγκάρ. Θεόν εκδίκηση.
Gods guide you, voyage.
I should be cautious around here.
Sibiave! Ibi manere! Tu!
Ubi et ile. Non hoc modo.
State! Et io silut!
Krios, what has Flavius done to you? Wake up! Where is Flavius? Where is he?
Fly away home, crow!
Another life spat on by that Roman shit-eater.
Whispers! Whispers!
What is that?
Melita, the Viper of the Staff.
The priestess?
No! No, my Lord Flavius! Please.
Gilut Okidor!
Et ei un pedere!
Qui, prohibere!
Destruyendo Juvenes!
Qui, tu la perdi! Oera!
Τι πλέον με έχει ουρά. Άνθρωποι να κολλέσουν. Τι συμβανέστηκε. Βάσματα του τάιζου.
Praxilla! Praxilla!
Stop your screeching. The sick need their rest.
Praxilla!
All right. Just keep your voice down. She left to speak to the priestess.
No! The priestess! A snake in the apple! She has them. She keeps them hidden. Lies in whispers. Secrets. Shrouded. Her shrine of whispers!
Is this poor witless thing you're doing?
Did Praxilla tell you where she was going?
The mountains. But
Look to this man. He needs help. I will find the Shrine of Whispers.
Όχι. Τη θυμίζω σε αφροσύνη.
hey,
Τι είναι. Ποσειδόν.
Incumbite! Nunc honos ne descendas!
Et nunc ad auxilio! Arriva! Finis, bastardos! 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 State, et io silus, et tua est!
A secret in the mountains. I pray Praxila and the others are all right.
You should be grateful. You serve Rome now, and the work will be over soon. You must know its secrets. Don't you see, Praxila? Hope and knowledge.
Ego ludere sordida! Siste! Le tu!
She was a healer. She makes me ashamed. The priestess! She was torturing these people! She was a healer. She makes me ashamed. I would burn this place to ashes if I could. There is terrible evil here, Bayek. I am terrified for the fate of my Cyrenaica.
Melita was mad.
That relic, the one that Flavius used at the farm, he used it here.
When I found Krios, I knew. I could feel it growing, digging in my mind.
That is what it does. Insidious like a parasite. Control me.
Melita could not be saved.
After what she did, I would have slit her throat myself. Thank you. For me, for Balagrey. It is more than I would have asked.
And that is why I give it freely, while freedom still means something.
Don't you ever get sick of saying so many goodbyes?
Part of me, yes. But it is part of the journey. And on it, I find those who give me hope. Your land will not die, Praxila. You are its healer, its protector, its Medjay.
Now is our time to emerge from the madness, Bayek of Siwa.
Welcome to Discovery Tour by Assassin's Creed, Ancient Egypt. Welcome to Alexandria, planning of the city. Alexander's plan to build his great city began with a verse from Homer's Odyssey. There is, in front of Egypt, in the sea with many swells, an island called Pharos. Guided by these clues, Alexander the Great founded his future city at the western end of the Nile Delta. Though Alexander considered this location ideal for his great city, it presented considerable challenges. Too difficult to access during storms, the surrounding swamps threatened disease, and the limestone soil prevented the growth of healthy crops. However, due to the influence of his mentor Aristotle, Alexander the Great recognized that the true value was its strategic emplacement. Alexander knew that in controlling Pelusium to the east, Memphis to the south, and his crowning glory Alexandria to the west, he would create a triangular stronghold, allowing him to control the entire delta while giving him access to the Mediterranean. The Great Walls of Alexandria had a humble beginning. Lacking chalk to outline the future city's foundations, architects were forced to use flour instead. Clouds of migrating birds swept down and ate the flour, erasing the plans. This prompted Alexander to seek guidance from the oracles, who reassured him that his future city was destined to feed a large population. Excavations led by Mahmud Bey el-Falaki in the 19th century revealed that the wall enclosure measured approximately 5.2 kilometers in length and 2.2 kilometers in width. It was roughly 9 meters in height. These formidable ancient walls would resist a number of attacks. Including fending off the king of Syria in 169 BCE. It wasn't until 295 CE that they eventually fell to Roman Emperor Diocletian, and this only after 8 months of relentless assault. Alexandria's principal architect, Dinocrates, chose a Hippodamian grid plan. The grid maximized functionality, with wide, straight roads and canals running beneath them. Alexander recognized the military value of the city's design. The wide, parallel streets gave him optimal surveillance of the city, while allowing the unobstructed flow of troops. A central corridor ran from the Mediterranean's north port down to Lake Mareotis to the south. This thoroughfare acted as an unobstructed link for commercial trade and travel between the two ports. Many of the streets were bordered with grand buildings and parks, including Canopic Street, with its impressive gate bordering the eastern end. Alexandria was most likely built upon an already existing Egyptian village. Upon its completion, the Egyptians reviled the city, refusing to call it by its founder's name. Instead, they called it Raked, the building, as a mark of disdain, which was later Hellenized into Rakotis. Despite this, the name Alexandria would remain.
Welcome to Mummies of Ancient Egypt. The mummification process used by ancient Egyptians was highly ceremonial in nature. The different types of mummification took into account the social level and richness of the deceased and even included animals. The most expensive was that reserved for the pharaoh and the royal family, as well as some of the wealthiest members of the court. The first step was cleaning. Once bodies arrived at the mummification site, they were placed on inclined tables while the bodily fluids drained away. They were then cleansed by priests until they were deemed ready for the purification process. The purification of the body began with a libation from sacred water. The priest then fumigated the body with terebinth resin. After the ritual cleansing, priests used oils, spices, and all kinds of essences to further purify the body of the deceased. Finally, all body hair was meticulously removed. Once the body was properly purified, embalmers removed the organs, following very specific procedures. First, the brain was extracted by inserting a spoon through the nostril to break the ethmoid bone. Then, using a spatula, the pieces of the brain were removed as thoroughly as possible. What matter remained was extracted after a process of liquefaction, achieved through the use of a caustic liquid. The cranial box, once emptied, was rinsed and disinfected with palm wine, and then stuffed with strips of linen cloth and liquefied resin. After taking care of the brain, embalmers made an incision on the left flank and carefully set aside the viscera. The inside of the body was also rinsed with palm wine. Then the embalmers filled the belly with pure myrrh, cinnamon, and other perfumes, and sewed it shut. The removed viscera were washed in palm wine and packed in crushed herbs before being placed in canopic jars. Canopic jars were placed close to the sarcophagus or kept in a chest nearby. At first, the viscera were wrapped in tissue and placed in the vases. As the ritual requirements became more elaborate, ointments, spices, and even water and natron were added to the process. Towards the middle of the New Kingdom, canopic jars assumed the appearance of the 4 sons of Horus. They were known as the protectors of the viscera. These protectors had their own guardians, each a goddess of the dead. Imseti, the human-headed god, protected the liver and was protected by the goddess Iset. Hapi, the baboon-headed god, protected the lungs and was protected by the goddess Nephthys. Dumut-Ef, the jackal-headed god, protected the stomach and was protected by the goddess Neith. And finally, Kebesenuef, the falcon-headed god, protected the intestines and was protected by the goddess Selket. Natron is a naturally occurring mineral found in evaporite. These sedimentary rocks are made up of mineral salts and were generally mined from lake beds in Egypt. Embalmers used natron as a desiccant to dry the flesh and stop the corpse's putrefaction process. Once the body was cleansed and eviscerated, the deceased was covered in natron for about 40 days. Once desiccated, the body was prepared to be wrapped in strips of linen. Natron is a naturally occurring mineral found in evaporite. These sedimentary rocks are made up of mineral salts and were Once the body was fully desiccated by the natron treatment, embalmers oiled, painted, and sometimes even added hair extensions or a wig. They often used a henna-based antiseptic preparation to give the body a more colorful and lively appearance while preparing it to resist molds and fungi.
حي مرحتب نيني حنايف بحنسن سوق رد نفعني تعتمو ورسحات ستير خاو وجهي بحو.
Next came the phase which gave mummies their most well-known appearance, the wrapping. Originally, each part of the body was wrapped separately. Men had their arms crossed on their chests, while women had the right arm folded over their breasts and the left arm stretched along the body. However, techniques evolved over time. Eventually, the body as a whole was wrapped with limbs alongside the body, and increasingly sophisticated and different techniques of weaving flax bands were developed. In addition to the jewelry and amulets arranged on the skin of the deceased, amulets were also carefully inserted into the weaving of the linen strips. Each amulet was linked to a myth, or to an ideological belief related to rebirth. Masks were an important part of a mummy's finery. Early wooden funeral coverings were very expensive, however, and soon replaced by masks created through a technique known as cartonnage. Masks fashioned with this method were created by laying several layers of linen or papyrus pulp on a base made of mud or straw. Cartonnage was used for more than funerary masks. Ornaments and the animal coffins of the late period were also made in such a fashion. Cartonnage evolved to cover the entire body of the mummy during the 22nd dynasty. The mummies were placed on a board inside a rigid envelope of cartonnage, which was laced at the back with a string. Extremely cost-effective and visually pleasing, this technique was very popular through all layers of the society. Cartonnage envelopes were usually covered with inscriptions and polychrome decorations, specifying the names and titles of the deceased, scenes depicting daily life, or decorations specific to the funerary world. This was a true gift for Egyptologists eager to study the funerary rites of the ancient Egyptians. Once the mummy was properly wrapped and adorned, the embalmers proceeded with the ceremony of the opening of the mouth. A vital step of the funerary process, this ceremony was meant to bring back to life the deceased themselves, or an object representing the deceased. There were no less than 75 different stages for the opening of the mouth. It required the application of the same oils, ointments, spices, and perfumes used during the mummification process. Makeup was sometimes part of the process as well. The last stage of this long ritual was the act of touching the mouth with the adze to symbolically allow the breath of life to infuse an inert body. Its performance was reserved for a very specific set of people: priests who wore the mask of the god Anubis, a close relative of the family, or by the heir to the throne.
Welcome to Building Ancient Egypt. Constructed with bricks made of mud, most ancient Egyptian buildings were not permanent. Only religious temples and funerary monuments were meant to stand the ravages of time. For these very important structures, Egyptians used limestone, sandstone, and harder materials, such as granite, quartzite, and travertine. These heavy stone blocks were so prized that they were often transported from quarries located hundreds of kilometers away. Limestone was common and easy to extract from quarries on the east bank of the Nile. This particular limestone had marine fossils in it, however, preventing it from being easily decorated and polished. Used as the main building material, the structure would then be finished with a finer limestone that was polished smooth and decorated as needed. Limestone was used for the building of the first pyramids and for most of the religious buildings of the Old and Middle Kingdoms. Ancient Egyptians preferred to use sedimentary rock beds or layers like sandstone and limestone because they were often easier to extract. The common method used to extract stone was the open pit quarry. Stonecutters would find quality stone, shape, and dig it out on site. Open pit quarries enabled many workers to work simultaneously on many blocks, which allowed for better productivity. Workers would draw a large grid directly on the stone's surface, taking care to leave a space between the blocks. This allowed them to isolate the different blocks and create a trench that would make the extraction easier. Stoneworkers used iron chisels for hard rock and bronze or copper tools for softer rocks such as limestone. Removing material between each block created a trench line. In some quarries, that trench was wide enough to accommodate a worker, who would then cut the block entirely on site. For harder rocks like granite, workers cut a series of holes and hammered wooden wedges into them. They then soaked the wood until it swelled and caused the rock to split. The gallery extraction technique was used when the desired rock was buried under layers of rubble. This method was often necessary in order to find the whiter and finer limestone required for a smoother finish. The first step was for the stoneworkers to create an access pit that would allow them to reach the desired wall of stone. Once a wall of quality stone was exposed, workers could then cut out smaller blocks. This pit required a descending platform. Designed like a stairway, it allowed them to free multiple galleries of blocks. To cut the stone, they created a longitudinal kerf, or slit, and then cut the rock at a 90-degree angle. The lower side was determined along the geological layers or by using a horizontal cut. Wooden wedges were inserted in the rock and hammered in. Shock waves were then generated using hammers, fracturing the blocks at the seam. To maintain the stability of these mining pits over the course of quarrying, workers would leave support sections of unexcavated rock. In every quarry, dedicated shrines were established to offer protection for the workers. In particular, Serket, the scorpion goddess, was considered a very powerful deity among quarry workers. Every mine and quarry of ancient Egypt included a scorpion charmer, who was said to use magical powers to ward off the dangerous insects and keep the workers safe.